Picture this. It's a quiet, totally unremarkable weekend in February of 2016. Bank vaults are locked up tight, security guards are sipping their coffee, and the entire global financial world is pretty much asleep. But in the digital realm, well, a meticulously planned operation is unfolding right under everyone's noses. We're talking about a digital Ocean's 11 that literally almost brought the global banking system to its knees. So, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tracking the anatomy of a heist, where the world's absolute biggest financial fortresses were infiltrated, and get this, without a single physical door ever being kicked in. Let's dive in. So, $1 billion. I really want you to take a second and just wrap your head around that number. This staggering amount was the target the hackers attempted to steal from the Bangladesh central bank over just one single weekend in 2016. 1 billion with a B. To put that into perspective, if you were to stack $1 billion in straight $100 bills, you'd be looking at a tower roughly the height of a skyscraper. But see, these thieves, they weren't looking for physical paper. They were hunting for the digital keystrokes that control the world's wealth. Their goal was to pull off the absolute largest cyber heist in human history, all in the blink of an eye. For decades, the global financial system essentially operated under this cozy assumption that central banks were impenetrable fortresses, just uncrackable. But as U.S. Representative Carolyn Maloney pointed out with this quote, this heist totally shattered that illusion. It was an incredibly terrifying wake-up call for global leaders. It showed everyone that the invisible digital locks guarding our global economy were actually alarmingly fragile. Part 1. The target. Infiltrating the global vault. Okay, to really understand this, we need to know where the money was. Bangladesh Bank kept its billions in the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Now, this is a physical fortress sitting atop mountains of gold, deep below street level. The hackers obviously knew they couldn't physically breach the Fed. It's just not happening. So instead, they targeted the communication lines, specifically the SWIFT network. You can think of SWIFT kind of like the highly exclusive armored postal service of global finance. It delivers roughly 17 million payment instructions every single day. The trick here is if you want to move millions of dollars, you don't send cash on a plane. You send a SWIFT message. And the hackers figured out that if you control the instructions, well, you control the money. So SWIFT itself doesn't actually hold cash, right? It holds trust. And the hackers totally exploited this by slipping custom malware through, get this, secondhand $10 network switches and completely unfirewalled computers over in Dhaka. The hackers managed to steal the bank's digital credentials. They essentially forged the official wax seal of the Bangladesh Central Bank. They turned the bank's own trusted identity completely against itself, which allowed them to send fake transfer messages that looked 100% genuine to the people receiving them. And listen, this was not some hasty smash-and-grab job. This was a slow burn. The criminals patiently set up their getaway, opening dummy accounts in the Philippines back in May 2015. That is almost a full year in advance. By January 2016, they were just lurking inside the Bangladesh bank systems like digital ghosts, doing little test runs, figuring out the layout. Then, they simply waited. They waited for Friday, which happens to be the start of the Bangladeshi weekend, basically buying themselves days of complete and total silence to strike while nobody was watching the screens. Part 2. The multi-million-dollar typo. Over that fateful weekend, the hackers moved at lightning speed. They bombarded the New York Fed with nearly 3 dozen fraudulent requests, trying to drain that billion-dollar account. But then, out of nowhere, came this fatal slip-up. While they were attempting to route $20 million to a Sri Lankan nonprofit, they actually misspelt the word foundation. They typed fendation with an A. I mean, it's the exact kind of clumsy typo you or I would make in a quick text message, right? But here, on a multi-million-dollar international wire transfer, it prompted a routing bank to pause the whole thing and ask, wait a second, who exactly is the Shalika Foundation? Because of that humble missing O, combined with the sudden, highly unusual flurry of massive requests going to private entities instead of other central banks, the Fed finally raised the alarms and slammed the virtual vault shut. Just really think about that for a second. The most sophisticated, patient cyber robbery in human history was totally derailed by basic spell check. That single typo literally saved $850 million. Actually, it gets even crazier. In a super surprising twist, there was another bizarre stroke of luck. One of the recipient bank branches in the Philippines happened to be located on a street called Jupiter Street. And by pure, totally random coincidence, the word Jupiter triggered automated sanctions alarms at the New York Fed. Why? Because it exactly matched the name of a sanctioned Iranian oil tanker that was sitting on a U.S. government watch list. It was a complete one-in-a-million fluke that threw yet another massive wrench into the hacker's machine. Part 3. Laundering the loot, the getaway. Okay, so despite the typo and the Jupiter alarms, 4 of those transfer requests still managed to slip through, which means the hackers had successfully stolen tens of millions of dollars. But as any heist movie will tell you, stealing the money is only half the battle. Cleaning it? Now that is the true art. The funds hit those dummy accounts at Rizal Bank in the Philippines, were rapidly withdrawn and then funneled directly into the VIP rooms of Manila casinos. And why casinos, you ask? Because the exact moment that stolen digital cash becomes physical baccarat chips, gets played at a table, and then cashed out again, poof, the digital trail is completely vaporized. It's basically a dark magic trick. The math on the aftermath is just staggering. Now, that $20 million sent to Sri Lanka, that was recovered, all thanks to that clumsy foundation typo. But $81 million effectively vanished into that casino black hole in the Philippines. And despite years of intense global investigations, Senate probes, and massive legal battles, only about 15 million of that 81 million has ever been clawed back. The rest of it? It was successfully washed, packed up, and completely absorbed into the underworld. Part 4. Unmasking the culprits, the Lazarus Group. So who actually did this? You have to understand that this wasn't just a couple of rogue teenagers sitting in a basement in hoodies. Penetrating Swift, installing custom malware, and perfectly coordinating international bank holidays with casino money laundering, that requires serious resources. It requires the backing of a nation-state. During an investigation called Operation Blockbuster, cybersecurity detectives analyzed the malware's super rare encryption algorithms and they found a match, a collective known as the Lazarus Group. And the U.S. Justice Department eventually revealed that this group basically acts as the cyber warfare arm of the North Korean government. They are literally weaponizing the internet to rob global banks just to bypass international sanctions and generate illicit revenue for the state. When you look at their digital rap sheet, it reveals a terrifying escalation. It's like watching a criminal empire level up. They started out with relatively simple denial-of-service attacks back during Operation Troy. Then, by 2014, they escalated to massive corporate espionage in the infamous Sony Pictures hack, where they stole unreleased Hollywood scripts and executive emails. By 2016, they pulled off this completely unprecedented central bank heist we've been talking about. And then, just a year later, they unleashed the WannaCry ransomware that literally crippled hospitals and infrastructure all over the world. They aren't just adapting to our defenses, they are aggressively escalating. So where does that leave us? The Bangladesh bank heist absolutely forced the global financial sector to wake up and completely rethink its zero-trust security models. But as we wrap up this explainer, it leaves us with a pretty chilling realization about the fragile, hyper-interconnected digital systems that you and I rely on every single day. If the absolute fortress of global finance was breached by lines of code and was genuinely saved only by a misspelled word and a random street name, what invisible vulnerabilities are still out there just waiting to be exploited right now? It's definitely something to think about the next time you tap your phone to make a payment.